When I stopped at the supermarket to buy a cake before visiting my daughter-in-law's family, the cashier suddenly grabbed my hand and whispered something shocking. I slipped out the back door and hid to watch. Just 5 minutes later, I saw my son's mother-in-law doing something that froze my blood. Sometimes life does not give you a warning. It changes everything in the blink of an eye. A whisper in your ear, a cursed word, and suddenly your heart shrinks as if it were being stabbed. That day it happened to me, a Tuesday afternoon, while I walked through the aisles of the grocery store with the sweet smell of bread and the fake shine of the waxed floor beneath my feet. My name is Margaret. I am 67 years old, with hands weathered from working since I was 14, and a heart that still beats strong despite the scars. That day, like so many others, I just wanted to do something simple. Buy a red velvet cake to take to my daughter-in-law, Ashley. It was her 33rd birthday, and although our relationship had always been, let's say, lukewarm, I kept trying to build bridges, because that is how I was raised, because you do not abandon family, because I believed, naively, that love eventually wins all battles. The store was half empty, my worn shoes squeaking against the floor as I pushed the cart toward the bakery section. I had chosen my best mustard-colored blouse, the one my late husband Arthur gave me 15 years ago. I had combed my hair carefully, gathering my gray hair into a low bun. I wanted to look presentable. I wanted my son, Ryan, to be proud of his mother. How naive I was. I chose the prettiest cake I could afford, $25. It was not cheap for my Social Security check of $1,200 a month. But a mother's love is not measured in money, right? Or at least that is what I believed then. I placed it carefully in the cart, imagining the smiles of my grandchildren when they saw it. Mason, who is 7, and Lily, who is 4. My loves, my reasons to keep getting up every morning. I arrived at the checkout where Caleb always helped me, a skinny guy of about 25, with tattoos on his arms and a kind smile. I had known him for 2 years. He always helped me bag my groceries, asked about my health, called me Mrs. Maggie with genuine affection. That kind of kindness is rare these days. But when I put the cake on the belt, Caleb did not smile. He looked at me with a strange, nervous, uncomfortable expression. His eyes darted to the sides, as if verifying that no one was watching us. He scanned the barcode of the cake with trembling hands. "That will be $25, Mrs. Maggie," he said in a low voice. I took out my old synthetic leather wallet, the one that is peeling at the corners, and counted the bills carefully. Just as I was handing him the money, Caleb leaned forward. His hand grazed mine. It was not an accidental touch. It was deliberate, urgent. "Ma'am, excuse me for meddling where I am not called," he whispered, so quietly I almost did not hear him. "But 20 minutes ago, your daughter-in-law's mother, Mrs. Barbara, came in." My heart did a strange flip. Barbara, Ashley's mother, that woman who always treated me with a fake smile, the kind that never reaches the eyes, who called me sweetie with a tone that sounded more like mockery than affection. "What happened?" I asked, feeling my mouth go dry. Caleb swallowed hard. His look was one of genuine concern. "She bought exactly the same cake you just bought, the red velvet one." He paused, as if he did not want to continue. "She was talking on the phone, really loud. She said something that, well, I do not know if I should tell you." "Tell me." My voice came out firmer than I felt. She said, "Let the old woman dare to arrive empty-handed. But anyway, when she arrives with her cheap little cake, you know what to do, honey. You reject it in front of everyone. Let her see who the grandmother is that is really worth it." The world stopped. The fluorescent lights of the supermarket seemed to get brighter, more aggressive. The sound of the other cash registers turned into a distant buzz. I felt the blood rushing to my cheeks, a mixture of shame, rage, and something worse, confirmation. That horrible feeling that something I already suspected in silence turned out to be true. "Are you sure?" I whispered, although I knew Caleb had no reason to lie to me. "Yes, ma'am. I am so sorry. I thought I should tell you. It is not right what they are planning to do to you." I nodded slowly. I took my boxed cake and my change with hands that were now shaking. Caleb held my gaze with compassion. "Thank you, son," I managed to say. "Really, thank you." I walked out of that checkout lane as if moving on autopilot. My legs moved on their own while my mind tried to process what I had just heard. A trap. They were setting a trap to humiliate me, to make me look ridiculous in front of my own family. But I was no fool. Instead of going straight to the main parking lot, I walked toward the back exit of the supermarket. There is a small loading area where few people pass. From there, you can see the main entrance perfectly without being seen. I hid behind a large dumpster, feeling my heart pounding against my chest. 5 minutes. That was all it took to see the truth with my own eyes. A silver SUV pulled up right in front. I recognized that SUV. Barbara got out of the driver's seat wearing huge sunglasses, high heels, and a coral-colored dress that screamed, "Look at me!" She opened the trunk and started taking out bags, many bags, from expensive stores. And in the middle of all of them, a cake identical to mine. But that was not the worst part. She took out her phone and dialed a number. She put it on speaker. I heard Ashley's voice on the other end. "Are you arriving yet, Mom?" "Almost there, my life. I have everything ready. The fancy cake, the gifts for the kids, everything. When your mother-in-law arrives with her piece of junk from the grocery store." "You remember the plan, right?" Ashley laughed. A high-pitched, cruel laugh. "Of course, Mom. I reject it in front of everyone. I say we already ate yours. I need Ryan to see clearly who the mother-in-law is that really suits us, the one with money and class." "Exactly, honey. We almost have that old burden out of our lives. Give it a couple more months and Ryan will cut ties with her all by himself. Anyway, we already got everything we could out of her. That fool has nothing left to offer." The words hit me like punches to the stomach. Each syllable was a shard of glass burying itself in my skin. I remained paralyzed behind that dumpster, clutching my bag with the cake against my chest, as if it were a shield. The tears wanted to come out, but I did not let them, not yet. Because in that moment, something broke inside me, but something also ignited. Barbara hung up the phone, arranged all her bags, and entered the supermarket, swaying her hips as if she were on a runway. I stayed there, hiding like a thief in my own life, watching how my family planned to destroy me. And it was in that precise instant that I knew nothing would ever be the same again. Because it is one thing to suspect they do not love you. It is another thing entirely to hear with your own ears how they plan to erase you from the story. But they did not know who they were messing with. And I was just starting to wake up. If this story is touching something inside you, stay until the end, because what comes next will leave you breathless. And if you believe someone else needs to hear this, share this story. Like and subscribe to keep accompanying me in these tales of life that hurt, but also heal. I remained hidden behind that dumpster for almost 15 minutes more. Not because I was scared, but because I needed to think. I needed to understand how deep this betrayal I had just discovered went. The afternoon sun hit the back of my neck. I felt the sweat running down my back, soaking my mustard blouse. But I did not move. I observed every detail, every movement, as if I were watching a horror movie where the protagonist was me. Barbara returned from the supermarket carrying more bags. This woman did not stop. Boxes of fine chocolates, bottles of wine that I recognized because once I saw their prices and almost fainted, $80 each. Metallic balloons with the number 33 shining under the sun. A bouquet of flowers so big she could barely hold it. Everything was a show, a damn spectacle staged to humiliate me. She arranged everything in her SUV carefully, as if they were jewels. Then she took out her phone again. This time she did not put it on speaker, but I was close enough to hear fragments. "Yes, honey, I am on my way. Everything went perfectly. No, relax, that woman suspects nothing. Ha, of course she is going to arrive with her miserable little gift. When she sees everything I am bringing, she is going to look like what she is, an old woman with no resources." Every word was pure poison. But what came next was worse, much worse. Barbara kept talking while checking her reflection in the window of the SUV, fixing her hair dyed a blonde that screamed cheap salon trying to look expensive. "Ryan is already convinced that you deserve everything, Ashley. You told him that your mom is going to put up the $50,000 for the down payment on the new house, right? Perfect. Let him believe that. By the time he realizes I do not have that money, the house will already be in your name only, and he will not be able to do anything. My blood froze. $50,000, a house, my son, my Ryan, the boy I carried in my arms for months when he had that terrible fever at 2 years old. The same one I paid college for by selling my family land in the Midwest. That land my father left me, valued at $100,000, which was my only backup for old age. And now it turned out that these two vipers were using my own money, my own sacrifice, to build a future where I had no place. Barbara kept talking, increasingly animated, as if narrating the perfect plan of a movie. We already put it in his head that his mom is old-fashioned, that she does not understand the needs of a modern family. In 2 more months, when the deed is signed, you convince him that they do not need her in their lives anymore. That old woman is going to end up all alone in her little house, without grandkids, without anything. I could not hold back anymore. I took out my cell phone with trembling hands. I am not a technology expert, but my grandkids had taught me how to record audio. I pressed the record button just as Barbara continued her monologue of evil. Besides, Ashley, think about it properly. Your mother-in-law already gave everything she could give. The $20,000 you got out of her 6 months ago with that whole urgent medical expenses thing was the last strike. That fool did not even ask what the money was for. She just signed the promissory note, and that was it. Now she is dry, without resources. She is of no use to us anymore. $20,000. That amount echoed in my head like a scream. 6 months ago, Ashley had called me crying. She told me that Mason, my oldest grandson, needed an urgent operation, that insurance did not cover it, that they needed $20,000 or my grandson could lose sight in one eye. I cried with her. I shook with fear for my grandson, and without thinking twice, I took out all the money I had saved. Money I had gathered over 3 years working as a seamstress from home, hemming pants until my fingers ached. Money that was for my medicines, for some emergency. I gave it all to them, and Mason never had any operation, because he was never sick. The recording was still running on my phone. Barbara laughed now, a laugh that churned my stomach. Ryan is so easy to manipulate, honey. You just have to cry a little, tell him that your mom is your only ally, and he gets on your side. Men are like that, weak, especially when they have a pretty wife who knows how to handle them. And if the old woman gets difficult? I heard Ashley's voice on the other end, now with a worried tone. Difficult? Barbara let out a cackle. That woman has been a doormat her whole life. She is not going to change now. Besides, what can she do? Cry to her son? Ryan is already on our side. Sue, she does not have money even for a lawyer. She is alone, old, and finished. We already won, my love. The conversation ended. Barbara got into her SUV and drove off toward my son's house, to the party where I was supposed to arrive in an hour, knowing nothing, to be humiliated as the main course of entertainment. I stayed there, with my phone still recording, with my $25 cake in my hand, and with a brutal clarity in my heart. For 67 years, I had been good, obedient, self-sacrificing. I had swallowed slights, kept silent when I should have spoken, gave everything without asking for anything in return. Because that is how I was taught. Because I believed that was the correct way to love. But in that moment, watching that silver SUV drive away full of lies and falsehoods, I made a decision. I was not going to be their doormat anymore. I was not going to arrive at that party like the foolish old woman they expected to humiliate. I was going to go, yes, but not like the submissive Margaret they knew. I was going to go with this recording on my phone, with the truth in my hands, and with something they never imagined. I had the determination of a woman who has nothing left to lose. I put my cell phone in my purse. I took a deep breath. I looked at the cake I had bought with so much affection, and for a moment I thought about throwing it in the trash. But I did not. I put it carefully in my old car, because that cake was the proof of my genuine love. And maybe, just maybe, at the end of this story, it would serve to remind me who I really was. I started the engine. My hands were no longer trembling, because the war had just begun. And they had no idea that the submissive old woman had just woken up. I drove toward my son's house with a knot in my stomach. The trip I usually made with excitement now felt like walking to the gallows. But this time it was different. This time I knew exactly what awaited me. I decided to arrive late, on purpose. 30 minutes late. I wanted Barbara to feel safe, confident, victorious. I wanted to see how far they were capable of going with their rehearsed little theater. Because it is one thing to hear the plan, quite another to see how it is executed with your own eyes. I parked my car 2 houses down. I needed a moment. Just a moment to breathe, to mentally prepare myself for what was coming. I looked at my reflection in the rearview mirror, my brown eyes, tired but now alert. My skin marked by time and sun. The wrinkles around my mouth that used to embarrass me now seemed like war medals. I touched up the peach-colored lipstick I had applied so carefully that morning. I adjusted my bun, smoothed my mustard blouse, and picked up the red velvet cake with the same delicacy with which one holds their dignity firm, but aware of how fragile it can be. Ryan and Ashley's house was in a nice, gated community just outside of town. Nothing ostentatious, but decent. I had helped with $15,000 for the closing costs when they bought it 3 years ago. Another loan they never paid back. Another piece of my life I gave without thinking. I rang the doorbell. I heard laughter inside, voices, music. The door opened, and there was Ryan, my son, 35 years old, tall like his father, with those eyes that used to look at me with adoration when he was a child. Now they looked at me with discomfort? Annoyance? "Mom," he said without smiling, "you're late." "Sorry, son. There was traffic." I lied, keeping my voice calm. He did not hug me. Before, he always hugged me. Now he just stepped aside to let me pass, like someone letting in a salesman they did not ask for. I entered the house, and the atmosphere hit me like an icy slap. Everything was decorated with rose gold balloons. There was a table full of food, professional catering that must have cost a fortune. And in the center, like the centerpiece of an altar, was Barbara's cake. 3 tiers, decorated with edible flowers and gold letters that said, "Happy birthday, Ashley." My $25 cake looked like a child's toy next to that $400 masterpiece. "Mother-in-law," Ashley's voice rang out from the living room. She came out in a coral dress that matched perfectly with her mother's. "Coincidence, surely." She greeted me with 2 air kisses, the kind that do not touch the skin. "So good you came. We thought you wouldn't make it." Her tone was sweet, too sweet, like poisoned honey. "I wouldn't miss it for anything," I replied, holding out the cake. "I brought you this. I know you like red velvet." Ashley looked at the cake as if I were offering her garbage. Her smile froze for a second. Then she looked toward the table where her mother's cake reigned. "Oh, sweetie, it's just that." She paused dramatically, perfectly rehearsed. "My mom already brought a cake. Actually, we already cut it and had a piece. Right, honey?" Ryan nodded from the couch without even looking me in the eye. "Yeah, Mom, we already ate cake." The lie was so obvious it hurt. Barbara's cake was intact, without a single cut. The candles were not even lit yet, but there they were, waiting for me to swallow the humiliation in silence. At that moment, Barbara appeared from the kitchen like the star of the show. She was wearing heels that made her look taller, long earrings that sparkled with every movement, and that shark smile I already knew so well. "Maggie, dear," she said to me, using that fake term of familiarity. "Oh, what a shame you arrived late. We already did the main celebration. But don't worry, there is still food. And cake," added Ashley, pointing to the 3-tier tower. My mom really outdid herself. She ordered it from the best French bakery in the city. It cost $150, but well, for my daughter no expense is spared. The emphasis on my daughter was deliberate, as if I were nobody's mother, as if my relationship with Ryan meant nothing. "It is beautiful," I said, still holding my cake like a shield. "But I brought this one anyway. I thought we could have 2. The kids always want more sweets." Ashley exchanged a look with her mother, a conspiring look that said, "Here comes the part we rehearsed. It's just that we don't want the kids eating too much sugar, sweetie," Ashley said with that condescending tone, used to speak to confused elderly people. "Besides, my mom's cake is made with gourmet, organic ingredients, no preservatives, not like the ones from the grocery store that are full of chemicals." There it was, the humiliation served on a silver platter. I looked around. My grandkids were playing in the yard, oblivious to the emotional massacre that was occurring. There were some of Ashley's uncles watching me with curiosity. There was the next-door neighbor, Teresa, who had always been kind to me. Everyone was a witness to my supposed shame. "I understand," I said, keeping my voice firm. "Where do you want me to put it?" "Oh, leave it there in the kitchen," Ashley replied with a vague gesture, like someone pointing at a trash can. "We'll see what we do with it later." I walked toward the kitchen. No one followed me. No one offered to help. I put my cake on the kitchen counter, next to the dirty dishes, exactly where they wanted. Relegated, forgotten, insignificant. When I returned to the living room, the party continued as if I were invisible. Barbara was sitting in the best armchair, surrounded by my grandkids, showing them the expensive gifts she had brought. A video game console worth $400 for Mason. A designer doll worth $200 for Lily. "Look what Grandma Barbara brought you," Ashley was saying, using that title that twisted my soul. "Say thank you to Grandma Barbara." The children screamed with excitement, and I, the blood grandmother, the one who had held them when they were babies, the one who sang them lullabies, stood by the door, holding onto the frame because my legs were shaking. Ryan finally approached me. For a second I thought he was going to hug me, to ask me if I was okay. But instead, he said in a low voice, "Mom, why do you always have to make things awkward? You knew Barbara was going to bring a cake. Why did you bring another one?" I stood looking at him, really looking at him, searching his eyes for some trace of the boy I had raised, of the young man who used to tell me, "Mom, you are the best in the world," of the man who once promised to take care of me when I was old. I found none of that. I only saw a stranger with my son's face. "Because I am your mother, Ryan," I replied softly. "And mothers bring cake to birthdays, even if we are no longer welcome." I did not wait for his response. I turned around and walked toward the yard, where at least I could breathe air that was not poisoned with lies. I sat on a bench under the oak tree, watching everyone celebrate inside, watching how Barbara reigned like the perfect matriarch, watching how my place in this family was erased with every laugh, with every photo where I did not appear. And there, in that garden, with the sun setting and the noise of the party as background music, I squeezed my cell phone inside my purse. I still had the recording. I still had the truth. And although they did not know it, the real party was just about to begin. The party continued inside, as if I did not exist. I stayed on that garden bench for almost 20 minutes, watching through the windows, watching how my life had become a stage where I no longer had a leading role, not even a supporting role. But I was not broken. I was awake. My eyes scanned every detail of that house that I once felt was an extension of my home. And that was when I started noticing things. Things I had previously ignored, excused, or simply did not want to see. I entered the house again with slow steps. No one turned to look at me. Perfect. Invisibility is sometimes the best weapon. I walked toward the hallway where the family photographs hung. That hallway that used to fill me with pride because it was full of memories. But now, seeing it with new eyes, the truth hit me like a fist to the stomach. There were 12 photographs in total. In 8 of them, Barbara appeared with my grandkids. Barbara hugging Mason at the park. Barbara holding Lily at the beach. Barbara at Christmas with both kids opening gifts. Barbara, Barbara, Barbara. I appeared in only 2 photographs. 2, and they were at the very end of the hallway, almost in the dark corner where no one really looked. One was from Ryan's wedding, 8 years ago, where I was still important. The other was from when Mason was born, where I was holding my grandson with tears of happiness in my eyes. Old photographs, archived memories, as if I were past history. The most recent photos, those with nice frames and prominent spots, only showed Barbara as the official matriarch of this family. I kept walking. I entered the living room sneakily while everyone was still focused on Barbara, telling some exaggerated anecdote that made everyone laugh. I approached the shelf where the family albums were. I took one that said, Memories 2024. I opened it. Page after page of Barbara. Barbara at Mason's birthday. Barbara at the holiday party. Barbara at Lily's school play. Barbara taking the kids to the movies. Barbara buying ice cream. Barbara. Always Barbara. I looked for any photo of me in that entire album of the last year. There was not a single one. It was as if they had digitally erased me from my own family's life. I closed the album with trembling hands. Rage was beginning to boil under my skin. But I contained it. It was not the moment yet. I turned around and almost bumped into Teresa, the neighbor. She was a woman of about 50, kind, the type who always greets you and asks how you are. "Mrs. Maggie," she said in a low voice, pulling me gently toward the kitchen. "Are you okay?" "Yes, Teresa. Just observing." Teresa looked toward the living room where Barbara continued to be the center of attention. Then she looked at me with genuine concern. "It is not my place to say this, but I have seen things," she whispered. "I have seen how they treat you, how Mrs. Barbara is always here, and how you hardly ever come anymore. Before I used to see you often. What happened?" Her words opened a floodgate I had kept closed for dignity. "What happened is that they erased me, Teresa, little by little, so slowly that I didn't even notice until today." Teresa squeezed my hand with compassion. Then, hesitating, she added, "Last week I heard Ashley talking to her mom in the yard. I was watering my plants on the other side of the fence. They were saying that, well, that you had already given all your money and that now you were just a burden. That they needed to focus on the grandmother who really matters." Every word was a stab, but I was no longer surprised. It was confirmation of what I already knew. "Thank you for telling me, Teresa. You don't deserve this, ma'am. You are good people." I returned to the living room just as Ashley began serving the food. Expensive catering plates, salmon with capers, gourmet salad, sophisticated canapes, none of what I used to cook for them. My meatloaf, my stuffed peppers, my apple pie that Ryan loved so much as a child. I sat in a chair apart. Barbara occupied the head of the table as if she were the owner of the house. Ashley on her right side, Ryan on the left. I was left at the end next to uncles I barely knew. During the meal, I heard fragments of conversations that froze my blood. "My mom is going to help us with the down payment on the new house," Ashley announced loudly, glancing at me sideways. $50,000, because my mom does believe in us and our future. Everyone congratulated Barbara. How generous! What a wonderful mother. How lucky Ashley is. I squeezed the fork so hard my knuckles turned white because I remembered perfectly. 6 months ago, when Ashley got $20,000 out of me with the lie about Mason's operation, she had told me, "Sweetie, don't tell Ryan anything. He gets very stressed about money issues. This will stay between us." $20,000 they never paid back. $20,000 that supposedly saved my grandson's sight. $20,000 that I now understood were just the beginning of the looting. "And the new house?" asked one of the uncles. "Have you chosen it yet?" "Yes," replied Ryan, animated for the first time in the night. "It's incredible. 4 bedrooms, big yard, in a very safe gated community. It costs $400,000, but with Barbara's down payment, we can pay it off in 15 years. "And your mom?" the uncle asked, looking at me. "Is she going to help with anything too?" The silence that followed was deafening. Ryan cleared his throat uncomfortably. Ashley looked at her plate. Barbara smiled like a cat that caught the mouse. "My mom doesn't have many resources anymore," Ryan finally said, as if he were talking about a stranger. "She already helped enough in the past. Now we have to depend on who can really support us." The words pierced me like bullets. She already helped enough in the past. As if the $100,000 from my land in the Midwest, which I sold to pay for his college, didn't count. As if the $15,000 for the closing costs on this house, where they now despised me, didn't matter. As if the $20,000 from 6 months ago were just forgettable crumbs. "Besides," added Ashley, with that tone of sweet poison, "the new house is going to be in my name only, to protect the children's inheritance. My mom advised me to do it that way, for legal security. Right, Mommy?" Barbara nodded with an air of expertise. "Exactly, honey. In these times you have to be smart. The house in the wife's name protects the investment." I looked at Ryan, my son, my blood, waiting for him to say something, to protest, to defend even a little of his own rights. He said nothing. He just nodded like an obedient dog, and in that moment, I understood something devastating. My son was not a victim of manipulation. He was an accomplice. Perhaps in the beginning Barbara had handled him, but now he consciously chose to leave me out. He chose to believe them. He chose to hurt me. The meal ended. They brought out Barbara's cake amid applause. They sang happy birthday. Ashley blew out the candles while everyone took photos. I did not appear in any because no one called me to be in the frame. When they cut the cake, Barbara served the pieces personally, to every guest. To the kids, to Ryan, to Ashley. She never offered me any. I sat in my chair in the corner, watching everyone enjoy that expensive cake, while my red velvet cake remained abandoned in the kitchen, like trash no one wants to touch. And there, in the middle of that party where I was less than a ghost, I took the final decision. I had seen enough. I had confirmed the complete pattern. Erase me from the photos. Erase me from memory. Erase me from the present and the future. All while squeezing me for the last dollar I had. But what they did not know is that ghosts sometimes return, and when they do, they bring with them all the buried truths. The party began to disperse around 9 at night. The uncles were saying goodbye. The kids were already yawning, tired after so much sugar and excitement. I was still there, sitting in my chair in the corner, waiting, observing, like a wounded animal that still has the strength to defend itself. "Mom, it's late," Ryan said to me without looking directly at me. "Shouldn't you go now? The drive to your house is long." Translation: get out. You already fulfilled the requirement of appearing, and we don't need you here anymore. "Let me help clean up first," I replied, standing up. "It's not necessary," Ashley intervened quickly. "My mom is going to stay and help me. You rest, sweetie. You did enough by coming. You did enough. As if my presence were a favor, I did them. Not a right as a grandmother and mother." "All right," I said with a calm voice. "Let me use the bathroom before I go." I walked toward the hallway bathroom, the one next to the kitchen. But I did not go in. I hid in the corner, right where the wall makes an angle that makes you invisible if you know how to position yourself. A skill I learned being a child in a house full of siblings. How to make yourself small. How to listen without being seen. And what I heard in the next 10 minutes changed everything. Ashley and Barbara entered the kitchen. I heard the sound of dishes clinking, the tap water running. And then, their voices lowered in volume, but not enough. "Did you see her face when you rejected her cake?" Barbara's voice sounded amused, almost euphoric. She was about to cry. It almost made me feel bad. "Well, not that much." Ashley laughed. A sharp laugh that drove splinters into my chest. "You did it perfectly, Mom. Just like we rehearsed. Ryan didn't even defend her. He is already completely on our side." "Of course he is, honey. Did you see how we announced the new house thing? That old woman wanted to die when you said it was going to be in your name only?" I took my cell phone out of my purse. My hands were trembling, but I managed to open the recorder app. I pressed the red button. The recording began, capturing every poisonous word. "Do you think she suspects anything?" Ashley asked, now with a more nervous tone. "Her? Please. She is dumber than I thought. We got $20,000 out of her 6 months ago with the story about Mason's operation, and she didn't even ask to see medical receipts. She signed the promissory note, and that was it. A true idiot." I felt bile rising in my throat. But I forced myself to stay still, to keep recording. "The problem is, there is no more money to get out of her," Barbara continued. "I already investigated. Her Social Security is $1,200 a month. Misery, and the land in the Midwest she sold years ago for Ryan's college. She has no properties. She has no savings. We already squeezed her dry." "Then, why keep pretending we like her?" asked Ashley. "Exactly, my love. That is why the plan is perfect. In 2 months, when Ryan signs the deed for the new house, you convince him that they need space, that his mom is toxic, that she is stressing them out, that the kids don't need that negative influence of a bitter old woman. And if she gets difficult? She won't get difficult because she is a coward. She has spent her whole life swallowing slights and humiliations. Why would she change now? Besides, without money she has no power. And without Ryan, she has no access to the grandkids. She will end up all alone in her little house, watching through the window as life goes on without her." The silence that followed was even crueler than the words, as if they were savoring the victory. "The only thing that worries me," said Ashley after a moment, "is that Ryan feels guilty. You know how he is. Sometimes he gets sentimental about his mom." "Oh, honey, that is what you are for. Every time he gets sentimental, you cry. You tell him his mom makes you feel bad, that she compares you, that she criticizes you. Men hate seeing their wives cry. They will always choose the wife over the mother. Always. And what about the $50,000 for the down payment? Ashley's voice sounded worried. Mom, you know we don't have that money. Your business is. Shh, Barbara interrupted her abruptly. Do not talk about that here. No one can know my business is bankrupt. No one can know I owe $75,000 on credit cards. No one. My heart was beating so hard I feared they could hear it. But, Ashley, listen to me well, Barbara continued, now with a serious voice. By the time Ryan discovers I don't have the $50,000, the house will already be in your name. Only in your name. He won't be able to do anything. And if he gets mad, well, you threaten him with divorce, with taking the kids away. Men are weak, honey. They are easy to control when there are kids involved. It's just that I'm scared everything will go wrong. It won't go wrong because we hold all the cards. Ryan is already convinced his mom is a burden. He already signed the promissory note for the $20,000 as a co-signer without even reading it. He already agreed that the house be in your name only. We practically did all the work. The only thing missing is the final blow, cutting him completely out of our lives. And if she tries to fight? If she goes to Ryan and tells him things? Barbara let out a cackle that turned my stomach. Tell him what? That she heard us talking? We'll say she is senile, that she is inventing things out of jealousy, that she is trying to separate her own son's marriage because she is a bitter and controlling old woman. Who is Ryan going to believe? His young, pretty wife, or his old, resentful mom? You're right. Ashley sounded calmer now. Besides, she has never been one to fight. She always swallows everything. She always forgives. It's her doormat nature. That is why we win, my love. Because she is weak and we are strong. Because she believes in love and family, and we believe in money and power. And in this world, money always wins. I heard glasses clinking. They were toasting, celebrating my destruction as if it were a sports victory. To us, said Barbara. To us, repeated Ashley. And to getting rid of that old burden once and for all. They laughed. Both of them. Their laughs echoed in that kitchen like crows cawing over a corpse. I was still there, hidden in my corner, with the phone recording every syllable, every laugh, every macabre plan. Tears ran down my cheeks in silence, but they were no longer tears of sadness. They were tears of rage, of indignation, of brutal awakening. I waited for them to leave the kitchen. They walked toward the living room, still laughing, completely oblivious that they had been heard, oblivious that they had just given me exactly what I needed. I went into the bathroom for real. I closed the door and looked at my reflection in the mirror. My face was red, my eyes puffy, my lipstick smeared. But in those eyes there was also something new, something that had not been there in years. Determination. I washed my face with cold water. I touched myself up as best I could. I put my phone with the recording deep in my purse, as if it were the most valuable treasure in the world. And in a way, it was. I came out of the bathroom with firm steps. Ashley and Barbara were in the living room, sitting like queens on their throne of lies. I'm leaving now, I announced with a clear voice. Hope it goes well, sweetie, said Ashley, without even getting up. Ryan appeared to say goodbye at the door. For a moment, just a moment, I thought about telling him everything right there, shouting the truth at him, showing him the recording. But I didn't, because I understood something fundamental. My son needed to hit rock bottom before waking up. He needed to see for himself who the women he had chosen over his own mother really were. Goodbye, son, I said, looking him in the eye. Sleep well. I walked to my car under the starry sky. The cool air hit my face, and for the first time in hours, I could breathe deeply. I started the engine. I looked at the house in the rearview mirror. The lights were still on, the laughter was still sounding, but the war was just beginning. And this time, the old doormat had weapons they never imagined. I didn't drive directly to my house that night. I couldn't. My hands were shaking so much I had to park at a gas station 3 blocks from Ryan's house. I turned off the engine, and there, alone in the darkness of my old car, I let out everything I had been holding in for hours. I cried. I cried like I hadn't since I buried my husband Arthur 8 years ago. I cried for the humiliation, for the betrayal, for the stabbing pain of knowing that the people I loved most considered me disposable trash. But above all, I cried for my son, because I can understand Barbara's cruelty. She is a stranger, a woman who owes me nothing, who only seeks her own benefit. I can even understand Ashley's calculated coldness. She never really liked me. I was always just an obstacle in her path. But Ryan is my blood, my creation. The baby who slept in my arms for whole nights when he cried from colic. The boy I defended when others bullied him at school. The young man I supported when everyone said studying architecture was a waste of time. How did we get here? At what moment did I lose my son? I wiped my tears with an old napkin I found in the glove compartment. I took 3 deep breaths, like Arthur taught me when anxiety attacked. And I made a decision. Before planning my next move, I needed to try one last time. I needed to talk to Ryan alone. I needed to know if there was anything left of the boy I raised, or if I had lost him forever. The next day, Wednesday morning, I called his cell phone. He answered on the 4th ring. "Mom?" His voice sounded annoyed, as if I had interrupted him. "What happened?" "Ryan, I need to talk to you. Alone. Can we meet today?" There was a long silence. "Too long. I'm busy, Mom. I have meetings all day." "It's important, son. Please, just 1 hour." I heard an exaggerated sigh on the other end. "All right. At 2 o'clock at the coffee shop on the corner by my office, but only 1 hour because I have things to do." Before, Ryan would have canceled anything to see me. Now he gave me an hour as if I were an annoying client. I arrived at the coffee shop 15 minutes early. I ordered a black coffee that cost $3 and hardly touched it. My hands wouldn't stop shaking. I mentally rehearsed what I was going to say to him. How was I going to start? How was I going to make him understand without sounding like a bitter mother? Ryan arrived on time. At least that. He was wearing a gray suit I had helped him buy 2 years ago, when he got his current position as manager. He looked tired, puffy eyes, hunched posture. He sat in front of me without hugging me, without smiling. "What did you want to talk about?" he asked directly, checking his watch as if he were already counting the minutes to leave. "About us, Ryan. About what is happening between us." "Nothing is happening, Mom. I'm just busy. I have a family to support. Responsibilities." "You had a mother too," I interrupted him gently. "Or not anymore." Ryan clenched his jaw. He looked away toward the window. "Don't start with the drama, please." "Drama? You think it's drama that yesterday they humiliated me at your wife's party? That they rejected my cake in front of everyone? That they treated me as if I didn't matter?" "Mom, there was already cake. It wasn't necessary for you to bring another one. And warning me beforehand? Telling me not to bring it? Defending me when they made me feel like garbage? You're blowing things out of proportion. Ashley didn't mean to offend you. It's just that, well, Barbara's cake was more appropriate." The word appropriate hurt me more than a slap. "Appropriate?" I repeated, feeling my voice crack. "Is my love not appropriate, Ryan? Are my 67 years of life not appropriate? Is everything I have done for you not appropriate?" "There you go again." Ryan raised his voice, attracting the attention of other tables. "Always throwing in my face what you have done for me. Always reminding me of your sacrifices. You know what, Mom? That was your obligation. You were my mother. It was your duty to raise me, educate me, give me what I needed." The words came out of his mouth like spat poison. I sat paralyzed, looking at him, searching his face for some sign that he didn't mean it seriously, that he was being cruel just because of the stress. But his eyes were cold, decided. "My obligation?" I whispered. "Ryan, I sold the land your grandfather left me, the only inheritance I had, $100,000 that was my insurance for old age. I used them to pay for your college because you wanted to be an architect, and the degree was expensive. That was my obligation?" "Yes," he replied without hesitating. "Parents should give education to their children. That doesn't make you special." I felt something break inside my chest, something that could never be repaired. "I gave you $15,000 for the closing costs on your house," I continued, my voice now trembling. "I worked double shifts for months to gather that money, and I thanked you at the time. What more do you want? A medal? For me to be eternally thanking you? I want you to respect me." I finally exploded, hitting the table with the palm of my hand. I want you to treat me like your mother, not like an annoying stranger. I want you to see that Barbara and Ashley are manipulating you. Ryan laughed, a dry laugh, without humor. Manipulating me? Mom, please. Barbara is helping us with $50,000 for the new house. She is present for my children. She does understand the needs of a modern family, not like you, who still lives in the past believing that with homemade meatloaf and unconditional love, it's enough for everything. Every word was a knife plunging deeper. Ryan. My voice broke completely. 6 months ago, I gave you $20,000. Ashley told me that Mason needed an urgent operation, that he would lose sight in one eye. I signed a promissory note. I gave you all my savings. Do you remember that? Ryan blinked. For the first time in the conversation, I saw a flash of discomfort in his eyes. So? I told you you were going to pay me back. But Mason never had any operation, did he? The silence that followed gave me the answer. Mom, we needed that money for other things. Household expenses. Ashley was going to explain to you, but you never asked. You simply gave the money and that was it. Because they told me my grandson was in danger. How was I not going to give the money? Tears were now running freely down my face. Are you telling me you lied to me? That you used your son, my grandson, to get money out of me? It's not as simple as you put it. Yes, it is, I shouted, not caring anymore who heard us. You lied to me, you used me, and you allowed it. Even worse, you signed as a co-signer on that note. You are also part of this. Ryan stood up abruptly from the table. His face was red, his fists clenched. You know what your problem is, Mom? That you don't understand you are no longer the priority in my life. My priority is Ashley, my kids, my future. I'm not 8 years old anymore to be hanging on your skirts. I grew up. I have my own obligations. And, frankly, I'm tired of you making me feel guilty for living my life. I never asked to be your priority, I replied between sobs. I only asked you not to erase me, not to treat me like garbage, not to allow your wife and your mother-in-law to humiliate me. No one humiliated you. You're being dramatic, playing the victim like always. Like always? Ryan, this is the first time in my life I am telling you how I feel. I always swallowed everything. I always gave you the benefit of the doubt. I always put your needs before mine. And this is how you pay me? Ryan grabbed his jacket from the back of the chair. This conversation makes no sense. You are in an emotional moment and cannot think clearly. When you calm down, we'll talk. I am perfectly calm, I lied, wiping my tears with violence. And I am seeing clearly for the first time in years. I see that I lost my son, that the boy I raised, that I loved with all my being, no longer exists. How dramatic, Mom. Seriously. He started walking toward the exit. Ryan, wait. I called him one last time. Do you remember when you were 9 and broke your arm? I slept in the hospital for 3 nights in an uncomfortable chair. I didn't move from your side. Do you remember when your dad died and you were 27? I held you while you cried like a child. I told you everything was going to be okay. Do you remember all that? Ryan stopped at the door. He didn't turn to see me, but he stood still. Because I do remember, son. And I'm not throwing it in your face. I remind you because that is true love. That love that asks for nothing in return. That love that I now realize you do not feel for me. He turned then. And in his eyes I saw something that destroyed me. Indifference. There wasn't even anger anymore. Just a cold and calculated distance. Goodbye, Mom. Let me know when you stop being so dramatic. And he left. I stayed there sitting, in that noisy coffee shop, crying in front of my cold coffee that I never drank. People looked at me with curiosity or with pity. I didn't care, because I had just lost my son. Not to death, not to an accident. I lost him to something worse. To his own decision to abandon me. I paid the $3 for the coffee and left there with my legs shaking. I got in my car and drove to my small house in the neighborhood. The house where Ryan grew up, where his room was still intact with his soccer trophies and his diplomas. I went in and threw myself on my bed. I hugged the pillow and screamed. I screamed all the pain, all the rage, all the impotence of a mother who is no longer loved. I cried until I ran out of tears. And when I had nothing left to cry, something changed inside me. Because the deepest pain is sometimes the door to the fiercest strength, and I had just crossed that door of no return. I spent 2 days locked in my house without answering calls. Not because I was destroyed. Not anymore. I was doing something I should have done a long time ago. Investigating. Because pain had clouded my vision for years. But now I saw with brutal clarity. And when a 67-year-old woman decides to stop being a fool, she becomes dangerous. I had the recordings. That was already pure gold. But I needed more. I needed to completely understand the chessboard where they had turned me into a pawn. I needed to know exactly who Barbara was, what she had, what she owed, and what her true game was. On Friday morning, I dialed my niece Sarah. She works at a major bank downtown in the credit department. She is a discreet, intelligent woman, the kind who knows how to get information without making noise. Aunt Maggie, what a pleasure to hear you. Her voice sounded genuinely happy. How are you? I need a favor, Sarah. And I need it to be between us. There was a pause. Sarah knew that tone, the tone of when something serious was happening. Tell me, Auntie, what do you need? Information about a person. Barbara Miller. She lives in the West Hills neighborhood. She has a cosmetics business called Divine Beauty. Is what you're asking me legal? She asked cautiously. I just need to know if she has debts, if her business is active, public information that anyone could get. But I don't know how to do it. Sarah sighed. Give me 2 days. I don't promise anything, but I'll see what I can find. While I waited, I did my own investigation. I searched on social media. Barbara had a very active Facebook profile where she showed off her successful business. Photos with expensive products, trips to beaches, luxury restaurants, everything very pretty. Too pretty to be true. But when I checked deeper, I found inconsistencies. The photos of the trips were recycled from previous years. The new products she sold appeared in cheap liquidation groups. Her silver SUV, which she showed off as being from this year, had tags from 2018. Everything was smoke, a facade carefully built to appear what she was not. On Sunday afternoon, Sarah called me. Her voice sounded serious. Auntie, are you sitting down? Yes, honey. Tell me. Barbara Miller has serious financial problems. I found 5 maxed-out credit cards. The total debt is $75,000. Her business, Divine Beauty, closed operations 8 months ago for non-payment to the supplier. She has 2 pending lawsuits from clients who paid for products she never delivered. And her SUV is about to be repossessed because she owes 6 months of payments. Every word was a piece of the puzzle fitting perfectly. And the $50,000 she is supposedly going to give for the down payment on my son's house? Auntie, that woman doesn't have $50,000. She barely has enough to eat. She lives off appearances and what she gets out of her daughter. She is a professional con artist. Can you send me all that in writing? Any official document? I'm going to send you screenshots of the credit bureau report. It's not official, but it shows the debts. Use it with care. Thank you, Sarah. You don't know how much I appreciate it. Auntie, be careful. That woman sounds dangerous. Don't worry, honey. I can be too when necessary. That same afternoon, I received the screenshots. Barbara Miller, $75,000 in debt, bankrupt business, pending legal lawsuits. She was a financial time bomb disguised as a successful businesswoman. But I needed more. I needed to completely understand what was happening with Ryan's new house. That $400,000 house they were supposedly going to buy with Barbara's support. I called Ryan. He answered after 5 rings. What do you want, Mom? His voice was cold. I just want to know how the new house thing is going. I'm happy for you guys. There was silence. Distrust. Why the sudden interest? Because I am your mother, Ryan. Although you don't value it, I still worry about your future. He sighed. It's going well. We already have the land reserved. In 2 weeks we sign the deed. Barbara is going to give the down payment, and we pay the rest with a mortgage. And the deed is going to be in whose name? Ashley's. We already told you at the party. It is to protect the children's inheritance. Did you review the papers, son? Do you know exactly what you are signing? Mom, please, don't start with your paranoia. Ashley handles all that. She is more organized than me. Ryan, I only ask that you read well before signing, that you have your own copy of the documents, that you don't sign anything without understanding it completely. Enough. Mom, I am tired of your insinuations. Ashley is my wife. I trust her. Period. Okay, son. Just take care. He hung up without saying goodbye. But the call confirmed what I needed to know. Ryan was going to sign documents he hadn't read. He was going to put the house completely in Ashley's name, without any legal protection for himself. And he was doing it trusting in a down payment of $50,000 that would never exist. It was a perfect trap, and my son was walking straight into it blindfolded. That night, I didn't sleep. I was reviewing every detail, every piece of information I had collected. And that was when I found something else, something that froze my blood. Revising old emails that Ryan had forwarded me months ago about house paperwork, I found the name of the title company, Salinas and Associates. I searched for it on the internet and discovered something disturbing. The notary had been sanctioned twice for irregularities in deeds. Nothing legally grave enough to disbar him, but enough to raise suspicions. Coincidence that Ashley had specifically chosen that notary? I called the office pretending to be Ashley. Good morning. This is Mrs. Ashley Miller. I want to confirm the appointment for the signing of the deed for the house in the Orange Grove community. Ah, yes, Mrs. Miller. We have your appointment scheduled for Friday the 29th at 10 in the morning. Any changes? No, just confirming that the documents are as we agreed. Everything in my name only, right? That is correct, ma'am. Your husband signs as a witness and co-borrower on the mortgage, but the property remains registered 100% in your name, just as you requested. Perfect. We will be there. I hung up with trembling hands. Ryan was going to sign as a co-borrower. He was going to pay the mortgage for 15 years, but the house would never be his. And if something happened with the marriage, he would lose everything and keep owing the money to the bank. It was theft. Pure and simple. But there was something else I needed to investigate. The promissory note for the $20,000 I signed 6 months ago. What had really happened with that money? I searched among my old papers until I found the copy of the document. I had signed it so fast, so desperate to help my supposed sick grandson, that I had barely read it. But now, seeing it calmly, I noticed something. The note said personal loan, but didn't specify what for, and Ryan had signed as a guarantor. If they didn't pay me, I could sue legally, and if I did, Ryan would be jointly responsible for the debt. I kept that information as a card up my sleeve. On Monday morning, I went to the bank where I have my savings account. I spoke with the manager, Mr. Reynolds, a man of about 50 who had always treated me well. Mrs. Margaret, how can I help you? I need to know if I can legally claim a loan I gave. I have a signed promissory note. How much time has passed since the payment deadline expired? 6 months. Then, yes, you can start a legal process. Do you have a copy of the document? Yes. I recommend you consult with a lawyer, but that note is a valid legal document. You can collect it through civil court. I left the bank with a small but significant smile, because every piece of information was an arrow in my quiver, and I was preparing the complete arsenal. I had the recordings where they confessed their plans. I had the proofs of Barbara's debts. I had the promissory note for the $20,000. I had knowledge of the legal trap they were preparing for Ryan. And now I only needed one more thing. An ally. Someone from the inside to help me expose all this in the most devastating way possible. On Tuesday afternoon, while I was drinking coffee in the kitchen of my small house, I received a call from an unknown number. Normally I don't answer, but something told me to do it. Mrs. Margaret? The voice on the other end sounded young, female, nervous. Yes, who is speaking? This is Jessica. Jessica Miller, Ashley's sister. My heart stopped. Why would my daughter-in-law's sister be calling me? Jessica, is everything okay? I need to talk to you, in person. It is important, very important. There was urgency in her voice, but also fear. What is it about? I can't say it over the phone. Can we meet? Today? Please, ma'am. Believe me, I wouldn't call you if it wasn't necessary. Something in her tone made me trust. Or maybe it was that I had nothing left to lose. All right, where? Do you know the coffee shop the corner on Main Street? The one across from the library? Yes, I know it. In an hour, I will be there. I arrived 15 minutes early, as always. The coffee shop was half full of tourists and students. I sat at a table in the back, far from the windows, where we could talk with privacy. Jessica arrived on time. I recognized her immediately, although I had only seen her 2 or 3 times at family gatherings. She was young, 26 years old, thin, with brown hair tied in a ponytail. She wore jeans and a simple olive green blouse. Nothing like the ostentatious style of her sister Ashley. She sat in front of me with nervous movements. Her eyes were red, as if she had cried recently. "Thank you for coming, Mrs. Margaret," she said in a low voice. "Tell me what is happening, Jessica." She looked around, verifying that no one was listening to us. Then she leaned forward. "I know what my mom and my sister are doing to you, and it is not right. I can't keep quiet anymore." I felt my skin prickle. "What do you know exactly?" Jessica took a deep breath, like preparing to jump off a cliff. "I know they got $20,000 out of you with a lie. I know they are planning to isolate you from your son and your grandkids. I know my mom does not have the $50,000 she promised for the down payment on the house. And I know they already did all this before. With me." Those last words hit me like a fist. "With you?" Jessica nodded, her eyes filled with tears. 3 years ago, I was married to a wonderful man. His name was Michael. We had a small but profitable clothing boutique. We earned well. We were happy. But my mom started meddling. She told Michael that I needed more, that he should give me a better life. She convinced him to take out a loan to expand the business, $50,000. She paused to wipe her tears with a napkin. My mom said she was going to manage the money, that she had experience in business. Michael trusted her. I trusted her. She was my mother. How was I not going to trust? "What happened to the money?" I asked, although I already sensed the answer. "She spent it, all of it, paying her debts, faking a lifestyle she didn't have, on gifts for Ashley. When we wanted to recover it, she told us the business had failed, that we had lost everything. But I investigated. There was never any expansion. She never invested in anything. She just stole. And Michael?" Jessica broke completely. She sobbed, covering her face with her hands. "He couldn't resist the pressure of the debt, the stress, the constant fights, because my mom made us feel guilty. She said we were bad managers, that we were failures. Michael fell into depression, and I didn't know how to help him. We divorced a year ago. We lost the store. He moved to Denver, and I was left with the debts and a broken heart." I took her hand across the table. This girl was another victim of the same monster that was now devouring me. "I am so sorry, Jessica. And the worst is that my sister Ashley knew everything. She helped my mom. She learned from her. And now they are doing exactly the same to her husband, Ryan. The same strategy, the same steps, as if they had a manual on how to destroy families." "Why are you telling me this now?" I asked. "Why risk it?" Jessica looked me straight in the eye. There was determination in that young look. "Because I saw how they treated you at the party. I was there, in the kitchen, and I heard everything they said afterward. I heard how they mocked you, and I saw myself 3 years ago, keeping quiet when I should have spoken, letting them destroy my marriage without fighting." She wiped her tears with rage. "I am not going to allow them to do the same to another person. No more. I can't live with that guilt anymore. Besides, Mrs. Margaret, you were always kind to me. In the few times I saw you, you treated me with affection. You asked me how I was. No one else in that family does that. Not even my own mother." I felt an immediate connection with this broken but brave young woman. "What do you propose we do?" "I have proof," said Jessica, taking a USB drive out of her purse. "Here are the documents of the loan my mom stole from us. There are the WhatsApp messages where she and Ashley planned how to manipulate Michael. There are the bank statements showing the money was never invested in any business. Everything." I took the USB drive as if it were the most valuable treasure in the world. "And what do you want in return?" "Justice," she replied with a firm voice. "I want my mom to pay for what she did. I want Ashley to understand she can't keep hurting people without consequences. And I want to help you save your son before it is too late. Jessica, if you do this, your family is going to hate you. Your mom, your sister, they are going to turn against you." She smiled sadly. "Mrs. Margaret, they already hate me. They just disguise it with fake smiles and empty hugs. They stopped being my family the day they decided to steal from me and destroy my marriage. I have nothing left to lose. But you do have something to save. Your relationship with your son." We stayed in silence for a moment. 2 women hurt by the same family. 2 different generations united by pain. All right, I said finally. Let's work together, but I need you to be sure. What we are going to do has no turning back. I am sure, she replied without hesitating. What do you have? I told her everything. The recordings from the supermarket and the kitchen, the proofs of Barbara's debts that Sarah had gotten me, the promissory note for the $20,000, the information about the fraudulent house deed. Jessica's eyes widened more and more as I spoke. This is enough to destroy them legally, she whispered. I don't want to just destroy them legally, I said with a firm voice. I want everyone to know the truth. I want Ryan to see with his own eyes who these women he chose over his own mother really are. I want public justice. Jessica nodded slowly. Then we need a plan, and we need to execute it before they sign the house deed. When is it? This Friday, the 29th. In 4 days. Perfect. That gives us enough time. She took a notebook out of her purse, and we began to plan. 2 hours we were there, in that coffee shop downtown, designing the fall of Barbara and Ashley. Every detail, every movement, like two generals preparing the final battle. When we finished, Jessica looked at me with a mixture of fear and hope. Do you think it will work? It is going to work, I replied with a certainty I didn't know I had, because this time the old doormats learned to bite. Jessica smiled. A genuine smile. The first I had seen all afternoon. My mom always says older women are easy to manipulate because they are weak and sentimental. Well, your mom is about to learn that older women also know how to fight. And when we fight to win. We said goodbye with a long hug. A hug of allies, of warriors. As I drove back to my house, I felt something I hadn't felt in weeks. Hope. Not the naive hope that everything would magically fix itself, but the fierce hope of someone who knows she has the weapons to defend herself. Because the war was declared, and now we had an army. The next 3 days were a whirlwind of preparation. Jessica and I met every afternoon at my house, reviewing every detail of the plan until it was perfect. We couldn't fail. We would only have one chance. On Thursday night, 1 day before the deed signing, I received a call from Ashley that took me by surprise. Mother-in-law, how are you? Her voice sounded sweet, suspiciously sweet. Good, Ashley. Did something happen? Nothing bad. On the contrary. Tomorrow is my 33rd birthday. Remember? Well, actually it was last week, but my mom wants to organize a bigger party, a family lunch this Saturday. With everyone, uncles, cousins, friends. She wants it to be special. I stayed silent, processing. Why would she be inviting me after how they treated me? And you want me to go? Of course, sweetie. You are family. Besides, my mom insists. She says families should be united. Will you come? It is at 2 p.m. at the house. The trap was obvious. They wanted to have me there, to humiliate me in front of more people, to show everyone who was boss in that family. But what they didn't know is that I also wanted to be there. I will be there, Ashley. Thank you for inviting me. Perfect. And, sweetie, no need to bring anything. My mom is taking care of everything. She hung up. Jessica, who was sitting in my living room listening to the conversation, looked at me with bright eyes. It is perfect, Mrs. Margaret. Better than we planned. They are going to have witnesses. Many witnesses. Exactly what we need, I replied, with a smile that was no longer of a victim, but of a hunter. That night I almost didn't sleep. I went over the plan mentally again and again. Jessica would get a small, portable projector borrowed from a friend. I would bring my laptop with all the proofs organized in folders, the recordings, the documents, everything. Saturday morning I woke up with my stomach churning, but not from fear, from anticipation. I dressed carefully, a burgundy pantsuit that made me look elegant but serious. I gathered my hair in a neat bun. I put on light makeup. I wanted to look strong, dignified, like the woman who was about to recover her life. At 1 p.m, Jessica arrived at my house. She was carrying the projector in a discreet backpack. Ready? She asked. Ready, I replied, grabbing my laptop. We arrived at Ryan's house at 2 sharp. The driveway was full of cars. I recognized several. Ashley's entire extended family was there. The uncles, the cousins, even some neighbors. The door was open. We entered together. The house was decorated with balloons and streamers, A huge table full of expensive food, loud music playing. It was a celebration fit for a queen. Barbara was the first to see us. Her smile froze when she saw Jessica with me. "Jessica, what are you doing here? We didn't invite you." "I invited her," I lied quickly. "I thought it would be nice for the whole family to be gathered." Ashley appeared from the kitchen. Her face paled seeing her sister. "Jessica, what?" "I came to celebrate you, sister," Jessica said with a sweet smile that hid daggers. "Can't I come to your party?" Ryan approached, confused. The guests started noticing the tension. "Mom, what is happening?" "Nothing, son. Your cousin-in-law, Jessica, came to accompany me." "Is there a problem with that?" Barbara exchanged looks with Ashley. I could see the wheels turning in their heads. They wanted to kick us out but couldn't do it in front of everyone without looking bad. "Of course there is no problem," Ashley said finally with a fake smile. "Come in. There is food for everyone." The party continued, but the tension was palpable. Barbara watched us from afar. Jessica and I sat in a corner, waiting for the perfect moment. After an hour of food and forced conversation, the moment for the toast arrived. Barbara stood up in the middle of the living room, glass in hand, asking for attention. "Family, friends, thank you for being here, celebrating my daughter Ashley. But today we don't just celebrate her birthday. We also celebrate something bigger, the future of this beautiful family." Everyone kept silent, attentive. As many know, my daughter and my son-in-law Ryan are buying a new house. A beautiful house where my grandkids will grow up happy. And I, as a mother who loves her daughter, am going to contribute $50,000 so that dream becomes a reality. Applause. "Congratulations." Barbara shined under the attention. "Because that is what good mothers do," she continued, throwing me a poisoned look. "They support their children without conditions, without reproaches, without throwing past sacrifices in their faces." The hint was clear. Some guests looked at me with pity. It was my moment. I stood up. All gazes turned toward me. "You are right, Barbara. Good mothers support their children, and that is why I came today, to support my son Ryan by showing him the truth." The silence became thick. "What are you talking about, Mom?" asked Ryan, uncomfortable. "I am talking about lies, manipulation, theft." "Ma'am," Barbara raised her voice, "I am not going to allow you to come to my party to make a scene. It is not your party, Barbara. It is my son's house, and I have every right to speak." Jessica was already connecting the projector to the white wall of the living room. Ryan watched her confused. "What are you guys doing?" "Showing you who your mother-in-law really is," I said, opening my laptop. "And who your wife is." "Ryan, get them out of here!" shouted Ashley, hysterical. "Your mom is crazy." "Let her speak," said one of the uncles. "I want to hear this." "Me too," added Teresa, the neighbor. Barbara tried to approach the projector, but Jessica stood in the way. "You are not stopping this, Mom. It's over." "Traitor!" Barbara screamed at her. "You are a traitor." "No, Mom. I am the one who got tired of your lies." I pressed play on my laptop. The first recording began to play. Barbara's voice coming out of the speakers, clear as crystal. "We almost have that old burden out of our lives. Give it a couple more months and Ryan will cut ties with her all by himself. Anyway, we already got everything we could out of her. That fool has nothing left to offer." The silence was sepulchral. All eyes turned toward Barbara. That is edited," stammered Barbara, pale. "It is a montage." "Really?" I said calmly. "Let's listen to more then." I played the second recording, the one from the kitchen during the first party. "That woman is dumber than I thought. We got $20,000 out of her 6 months ago with the story about Mason's operation, and she didn't even ask to see medical receipts. A true idiot." Ryan's face changed. I saw the color drain from his cheeks. "What operation?" he asked with a trembling voice. "Mason never had any operation." Ashley tried to approach him, but Ryan stepped back. "Honey, let me explain." "Explain what? That you stole $20,000 from my mom, lying to her about our son?" I projected the documents then. Barbara's debts, $75,000, her bankrupt business, the legal lawsuits. "This is the woman who says she has $50,000 to give you," I said aloud so everyone could hear. "A woman who owes almost $100,000, who doesn't even have enough to pay for her own SUV." Barbara crumbled onto a couch covering her face. "And now," I continued, Thanks to my ally Jessica, I am going to show you that this is not new, that they already did it before. Jessica took the floor with a trembling but firm voice. My mom and my sister stole $50,000 from me. They destroyed my marriage. They left me in ruins. And now they are doing the same to Ryan. She projected the documents of her case. The messages. Everything. The living room exploded in murmurs, shouts, accusations. This is defamation, shouted Barbara. I am going to sue you. Sue us, I replied with icy calm. I have a lawyer waiting, and I have every proof documented. Ryan approached Ashley. His eyes were full of tears. Is it true? Is all this true? Ashley did not answer. She just cried. Answer me, shouted Ryan. It is your fault, Ashley finally exploded. If you earned more money, if you were more ambitious, we wouldn't have to do these things. The confession hung in the air like toxic smoke. Ryan looked at her as if she were a stranger. Then he turned toward me, his red eyes full of shame and pain. And in that moment I saw my son return, the real Ryan, the one I had raised, the one who had been lost but now was waking up. The chaos that followed was indescribable. The living room turned into a boiling pot of overlapping voices. Ashley's uncles shouted, demanding explanations. The cousins got up from their seats. Teresa, the neighbor, squeezed my shoulder with solidarity. But I only had eyes for my son. Ryan was standing in the middle of the living room, looking alternately at Ashley and Barbara as if seeing them for the first time. His chest rose and fell with agitated breaths. His fists were clenched at his sides. Ryan, love, please. Ashley tried to approach again. Don't touch me. My son's voice came out like a roar I had never heard from him. Don't you dare touch me. Son, this is a misunderstanding. Barbara tried to intervene, recovering some composure. Your mom is manipulating everything. She is taking things out of context because she is jealous of. Shut up. Ryan's shout made the glasses on the table tremble. Enough lies. He turned toward me. His eyes were red, but there was something in them I hadn't seen in months. Clarity. Mom! The $20,000. His voice broke. Is it true? Did they get that money out of you saying Mason was sick? I nodded silently. And you? He looked at Ashley with a mixture of disgust and pain. You made me sign that promissory note as a guarantor. You told me it was for medical expenses for our son, that it was urgent, and I signed without reading because I trusted you, because you are my wife. We needed the money for other things, Ryan, replied Ashley, now with a defensive tone. The house, the kids, expenses. Other things? Ryan interrupted her. You lied to me about our son's health. You used Mason as an excuse to steal from my mom. One of Ashley's uncles, a heavy-set man named Robert, stood up furiously. Barbara, is it true about the debts? The $75,000? Barbara tried to maintain composure, but her mask was cracking. Robert, they are temporary problems. All businesses go through hard times. Your business closed 8 months ago, shouted Jessica. You don't have a job. You live off scamming your own family. You have no right to speak. Barbara turned toward her younger daughter with poison in her eyes. You and your loser husband lost your money because you were incompetent. No. Jessica took a step forward, trembling but firm. You stole from us. And now the whole family knows. You can't hide behind lies anymore. And the $50,000 you promised for the down payment, I said, projecting the last document on the wall. Here is your bank statement, Barbara. Jessica got it legally. You have $200 in your account. That is all. The murmur of the guests turned into a roar. Ashley's cousin, a woman named Sophia, stood up furious. Barbara, did you lie to me too? You asked to borrow $1,000 2 months ago, saying it was for urgent medical treatment, and $500 from me to fix your car, added another cousin. Like dominoes falling, more people started confessing the loans that Barbara had never paid back. 500 here, 1,000 there. The woman had built an empire of lies, sustained by the good faith of her family. Barbara got up from the couch, trying to recover some dignity. This is a plot. Jessica and this resentful old woman allied to destroy me because you tell the truth, I interrupted her with a firm voice. Yes, I allied with Jessica. Because I was tired of being the doormat where you wiped your shoes. Because I was tired of seeing how you destroyed my son with your poison. I walked toward the center of the living room, where everyone could see me. For months I wondered what I had done wrong. Why had my son abandoned me? Why did they treat me like garbage? I blamed myself. I thought I was the one who didn't understand modern families, that I was the old-fashioned one, the one who was in the way. My voice became stronger. But it wasn't me. It was you. I pointed at Barbara and Ashley. You, with your systematic manipulation, with your calculated lies, with your perfect plan to squeeze every last dollar out of my son and then get rid of me like trash. Ryan collapsed onto the sofa, with his head in his hands. Mom, I don't know what to say. I approached him. I knelt in front of my son. Something my 67-year-old knees protested. But I didn't care. You don't have to say anything now, Ryan. I just need you to understand something. I never stopped loving you. Never. But I did stop allowing them to hurt me. I treated you horribly, sobbed Ryan. I said terrible things to you. I abandoned you when you needed me most. I know, son. And that hurts. It is going to hurt for a long time. But I didn't come here to destroy you. I came to save you. I took another document out of my bag. Tomorrow, you were going to sign the deed for a house that was going to be solely in Ashley's name. You would be the co-borrower on the mortgage. That means you would pay the mortgage for 15 years. But if something happened with your marriage, you would lose everything. The house wouldn't be yours. And you would still owe $400,000 to the bank. I handed him the papers Jessica had gotten from the title company. Ryan took them with trembling hands and began to read them. His face transformed with every line. This can't be real. It is completely real, intervened Jessica. I reviewed the documents with a lawyer. It was a perfect legal trap. In 5 years, when the house increased in value, my sister would divorce you. She would keep the house that would be worth over $500,000, and you would be left on the street, in debt and with nothing. Ashley finally exploded. All this is your fault, Ryan. She screamed with hysteria she could no longer control. If you were a real man, if you earned enough money, if you weren't so weak and so attached to your mother, none of this would have been necessary. The silence that followed was brutal. Ryan raised his head slowly. There were no more tears in his eyes, only a coldness I had never seen in him. Get out, he said with a low but lethal voice. What? Ashley blinked, confused. Get out. Of my house. Now, this is my house too. No. Ryan stood up. I paid for this house with the down payment my mom gave me, with my own monthly payments. Your name is not on any document, so you get out. Now. And take your mother with you. You can't kick me out. I am your wife. We have children. We have children that I'm not going to let grow up watching how their mother and grandmother manipulate and steal from people. Ryan's voice was pure steel. Tomorrow I talk to a lawyer. I am going to ask for a divorce, and I am going to fight for full custody of Mason and Lily. They won't give them to you, shrieked Ashley. Maybe not, admitted Ryan. But I am going to try. Because now I understand that the real danger to my children was not poverty. It was you two. Barbara tried one last desperate move. Ryan, think of the kids. You can't destroy a family over a misunderstanding. Misunderstanding? Ryan looked at her with contempt. I have audio recordings where you admit everything. I have documents that prove every lie. There is no misunderstanding. There is only truth. He turned toward the guests. This party is over. Please, everyone leave. People began to leave in silence, some throwing us looks of support, others simply uncomfortable for having witnessed the collapse of a family. Robert, Ashley's uncle, approached Barbara. Barbara, come with me. You need to get out of here. Barbara, finally defeated, allowed her brother to take her out of the house. But before crossing the door, she threw me a look of pure hate. This doesn't end here, old woman. For me it already ended, I replied calmly. You are just a closed chapter. Ashley grabbed her purse, crying hysterically. Ryan, please. Go, Ashley. Tomorrow I send your things to your mother's house. For now, just go. Ashley left, slamming the door, making the walls shake. Jessica, Ryan, and I were left alone in that destroyed living room. Balloons deflated on the floor, food untouched on the tables. The projector still on, showing the last document on the wall. Ryan let himself fall onto the sofa again. I sat next to him. Jessica stood, discreet, giving us space. Mom, Ryan's voice came out broken. Will you be able to forgive me someday? I didn't answer immediately. I let the question float in the air. Because some wounds don't heal with a simple, I forgive you. But they can begin to heal with the truth. I stood looking at my son for a long moment. His face was destroyed, swollen from crying, marked by shame. He seemed to have aged 10 years in a single afternoon, and for the first time in months, I saw again the child I had raised, vulnerable, broken, but finally awake. Forgive you? I repeated his question in a low voice. Ryan, forgiveness is not something given as an instant gift. It is a long and painful path. I know, Mom. I know. He covered his face with his hands. I was an idiot, a terrible son. I treated you like trash. I chose to believe them instead of trusting you. How could I be so blind? Because you wanted to believe, I said softly. Because when one loves, one wants to trust, and they use that love as a weapon. Jessica approached timidly. Mrs. Margaret, I should go. You guys need to talk. No, I said firmly. You are also part of this. Stay. Ryan raised his head and looked at Jessica for the first time really. Thank you, he told her with a cracked voice. Thank you for having the courage to speak. I don't know what would have happened if you guys hadn't intervened. I do know, I replied. Tomorrow you would have signed those papers. In 5 years, Ashley would have left you with nothing, and I would have ended my days alone, without my son, without my grandkids, wondering where I failed. The silence filled the room. Then Ryan spoke, his voice barely a whisper. What do I do now, Mom? I have 2 kids. I have a destroyed marriage. I have debts. And I am so afraid of having lost you forever. I got up from the sofa. My knees protested, but I ignored them. I walked toward the window, looking at the street where some guests were still saying goodbye, murmuring among themselves about the scandal they had just witnessed. Ryan, I didn't come here to destroy your life. I came to save you. But saving you doesn't mean everything goes back to how it was before. I can't be that mother who swallows everything and forgives instantly. I turned to look at him directly. I need you to understand something. The damage you did to me is real. The words you said to me don't get erased. The contempt I felt doesn't disappear with an apology. I understand, said Ryan, with tears running down his face. I understand, and I don't expect you to forgive me tomorrow or next month. I just need to know if there is any possibility that someday— Yes, I interrupted him. There is a possibility, but it is going to require work. On your part. A lot of work. Whatever it is, Mom, whatever. I took another envelope out of my purse, the last document I had prepared. This is the promissory note for the $20,000. You signed as a guarantor. Legally, I can sue you and collect it from you with full interest. It would be $25,000. Ryan paled, but nodded. You have every right. I will pay you. I don't know how, but I will pay you every cent. I don't want your money, Ryan. What? I want something more valuable. I want you to go to therapy. You alone, without Ashley. I want you to learn to see how they manipulated you. I want you to work on yourself, and I want you to, when you are ready, look for me. Not because you feel obligated, but because you really understood the damage you caused. I extended the note to him. When you do all that, when you have really changed, we will tear up this paper together. But until then, I withdraw. Not from your life completely, but from this circus. Mom, listen to me well. My voice became firmer. I am going to keep being Mason and Lily's grandmother. I will come to see them when you allow me. But our relationship as mother and son needs to be rebuilt from scratch, with respect, with boundaries, with honesty. Ryan stood up and walked toward me. For a moment I thought he was going to hug me, but he stopped 2 feet away. And the money? The $25,000. I need to pay it to you somehow. There is a way, I said, taking out another document. This is a civil lawsuit against Ashley and Barbara for fraud and theft. Jessica and I prepared it with a lawyer. If you testify in our favor, if you tell everything you know, we can win. And the money we recover, we will split. Me, Jessica, and you. Me? They scammed you too, Ryan. You are also a victim, although you were also an accomplice. Jessica intervened then. The lawyer says we could recover up to $100,000 if we sum up all the fraudulent loans my mom took out. It won't be easy. It will take months, maybe a year, but it is possible. Ryan looked at the document. Then he looked at me. I will do it. I will testify. I will tell them everything. They deserve it. Good. I put away the papers. Then here ends the chapter of Margaret the Fool, and begins the one of Margaret, who respects herself. And us? Asked Ryan with a trembling voice. You and me? We start over, slowly, with respect, like two people who need to learn to trust again. Finally, I approached him. I put my hand on his cheek, feeling the warm tears under my palm. I love you, Ryan. I never stopped loving you for a single day, but I also love myself now. And that means I am not going to allow them to hurt me again. I promise you I won't do it, Mom. Don't promise me, I said softly. Show me, with actions, with time, with real changes. We hugged then. A long, silent hug, full of pain and hope at the same time. Jessica wiped her tears discreetly from her corner. When we separated, Ryan asked, "And now what's next?" "Now I am going to my house," I said, taking my purse. "You are going to stay here. You are going to process all this. And you are going to start making decisions like the adult man you are." Jessica has the lawyer's contact. Tomorrow you cancel that deed signing. You call a family lawyer to start the divorce. And you start therapy. Can I call you? Yes, but not every day. Give me space, Ryan. I also need to heal. I walked toward the door. Jessica followed me. Before leaving, I turned one last time. Oh, and Ryan, the kids, Mason and Lily, don't fill their heads with hate toward their mother. They are not to blame for any of this. When you are capable of talking about Ashley without bitterness, then you will know you really healed. And if I can't? If the resentment is too big, that is why you are going to go to therapy, I replied with a sad smile. To learn that forgiving is not forgetting. It is letting go of the poison so it doesn't kill you from the inside. I walked out of that house with Jessica by my side. The cool afternoon air hit my face, and for the first time in months, I breathed deeply without feeling that crushing weight on my chest. Jessica hugged me in the parking lot. "We did it," she whispered. "We did it," I repeated. But now comes the hard part. Rebuilding. Do you think Ryan will change? I don't know, Jessica. Honestly, I don't know. But I gave him the chance. The rest depends on him. And you? What are you going to do now? I smiled. A genuine smile I hadn't felt on my face in a long time. I am going to live. To recover my life. To stop being just Ryan's mom or Ashley's mother-in-law. I am going to be Margaret. Margaret Reynolds. A 67-year-old woman who still has a lot to give to the world. I like that, said Jessica. And us? Will we keep in touch? Of course. Warriors who fight together, stay together. We said goodbye with another hug. Jessica left in her car and I in mine. As I drove back to my little house in the neighborhood, I thought about everything that had happened. About how a simple trip to the supermarket had uncovered a whole hell of lies. I thought about Caleb, the cashier who had the courage to whisper the truth to me. Mentally, I thanked him. I thought about Sarah, my niece at the bank, who risked her job to get me information. I thought about Jessica, who had the courage to betray her own family to do the right thing. And I thought about myself, about the Margaret from a month ago who swallowed everything, and about the Margaret of now, who had learned that self-love is not selfishness, it is survival. Because sometimes the most revolutionary act a woman can do is simply refuse to be stepped on. And that day, I had started my revolution. 3 months later, a Tuesday morning, I was in my kitchen preparing dough for pies. The radio was playing an old song by Frank Sinatra, which reminded me of Arthur. The sun came through the window, illuminating the pots of basil and mint I had started growing. The house smelled of cinnamon and apples, of true home. My phone rang. It was Jessica. "Mrs. Maggie, did you see your mail?" "No, honey. I'm making pies." "What happened?" "The lawyer sent the documents. The lawsuit proceeded. The judge ruled in our favor. Barbara has to pay $80,000 divided among all those affected." My legs went weak. I sat in the kitchen chair, wiping my flour-covered hands on my apron. "Are you sure?" "Completely. Of course, she doesn't have the money now. but the judge ordered the repossession of her SUV and her assets. With time, we will recover something. Not everything, but something. It wasn't the full $20,000 they had stolen from me. Maybe I would recover $10,000 or $12,000 with luck. But it wasn't the money that mattered. It was the justice. It was that a judge, someone impartial, had said, "These women are wrong. These women stole. Thank you, Jessica. Thank you for everything." "No, ma'am. Thank you for teaching me that it is never too late to defend oneself." After hanging up, I sat looking at my wrinkled hands, stained with flour. These hands that had worked for 67 years, that had carried my son, that had hemmed clothes, that had signed that promissory note with blind trust. These hands that now knew how to defend themselves. The doorbell snapped me out of my thoughts. I cleaned myself up and went to open it. It was Ryan. I saw him once a week now, always on Tuesday mornings. It was part of his therapy: establish routines, create new habits. He looked different. Thinner, with deep circles under his eyes, but also with something in his eyes he didn't have before. Conscience. "Hi, Mom," he said with a shy smile. "Come in, son. I'm making pies." We went into the kitchen. Ryan sat in the same chair where he used to do his homework as a child. He watched me work the dough in silence for a moment. "How are things going?" I asked, without looking at him, concentrated on my hands. "Better. The divorce is almost finalized. Ashley didn't fight custody in the end. I think she realized there was no point. The kids are with me Monday through Friday, with her on weekends." "And how are Mason and Lily?" "Confused, sad sometimes. But the child psychologist says it is normal, that with time, they will adapt." I nodded. It wasn't my place to intervene in how he managed his children. Not anymore. That was his responsibility now. "And therapy?" "Hard. Very hard." Ryan ran his hand through his hair. "The therapist makes me see things I don't want to see. How I was complicit. How I chose the comfort of believing them instead of using my judgment. How I treated you." His voice broke slightly on those last words. "It is part of the process," I said softly. "It hurts to see our own mistakes. But it is necessary. Mom, I want you to know that I understand if you can never forgive me completely. I understand that I broke something between us that maybe will never be fully repaired." I left the dough and washed my hands. I sat in front of him at the table. I looked him straight in the eye. "Ryan, forgiveness is not an event, it is a process. Every week you come, that you show me with actions that you are changing, is a step. Every time you respect my boundaries is another step. I can't tell you. I already forgave you everything, because it would be a lie. But I can tell you that I am walking in that direction. Is that enough?" "For now, yes." Ryan nodded. He took an envelope out of his jacket. "I brought you something." I opened the envelope. Inside was a check for $3,000. "What is this?" "It is the first payment of the $25,000 I owe you. I know you said you didn't want the money, but I do want to pay it to you. I can't change the past, but I can honor my debts. I am going to pay you $500 every month until completing everything, with interest." I looked at the check. Then I looked at him, and I saw something that filled me with hope. A man taking responsibility. "Thank you, Ryan. There is something else," he continued. "I sold some furniture Ashley left behind, expensive things her mom had gifted. With that money, I opened a savings account for you. It's $2,000, so you have a backup." Tears stung my eyes, but I didn't let them out. "You didn't have to do that." "Yes, I did. Because for years you were my backup, and I left you alone when you needed me most. I will never be able to compensate for that completely. But I can try." We stayed in silence. A comfortable silence. Not like before, tense and full of unsaid things. But a silence of two people who are learning to be together again. "The kids want to see you," said Ryan after a moment. "They ask about you, especially Lily. She says she misses your stories." "And you want them to see me?" "Yes, but only when you are ready. I am not going to pressure you." "Next Saturday," I decided. "Bring them next Saturday. We will make pies together." Mason always liked helping me with the dough. The smile that lit up Ryan's face reminded me of the boy he had been. "Really?" "Really. But Ryan, listen to me. My grandkids are my grandkids. I am not going to allow anyone, neither you nor Ashley, to use them as weapons. I am going to see them because I love them, not because it is an obligation for you or a prize for me. Understood, Mom? Ryan stayed another hour. He helped me fill pies, something he hadn't done since he was a teenager. His hands were clumsy, he broke the crust, but he laughed at himself. And I laughed with him. When he left, I stayed in my kitchen surrounded by pies ready to bake. I looked around my small house, the walls that needed painting, the old but clean furniture, Arthur's photo in the living room, smiling at me from the past. This house wasn't big, wasn't luxurious, but it was mine, my space, my peace. 2 days later, a Thursday afternoon, Caleb from the supermarket called me. I had given him my number after everything happened, thanking him for having opened my eyes. Mrs. Maggie, do you have plans this weekend? Why, son? It's just that, well, I'm trying to open a small business, selling food to go. And I remembered, you make incredible pies. You gave me one once at Christmas. Would you be interested in being my partner? I put up the small locale I rented. You put the recipe and experience. I stood mute for a moment. A business? At my 67 years? Caleb, I don't know anything about business, but you do know how to bake, and I know sales. We could make a good team. Nothing big at first, just weekends. See how it goes. I thought about the $3,000 Ryan had given me, about the $2,000 in the savings account, about the money I would eventually recover from the lawsuit. I thought about my life, about how I had spent it always serving others, working for others, giving to others. And what if for once I did something for me? Give me a week to think about it, I said finally. And if I accept, we make a formal contract. No verbal promises. Perfect. That is how I like it, ma'am. Protecting your interests. When I hung up, I looked at myself in the hallway mirror. My reflection returned the gaze. A 67-year-old woman, with gray hair, with wrinkles, with scars visible and invisible, but also with bright eyes, with a straight back, with recovered dignity. Saturday arrived, and with it, my grandkids. Mason came running in to hug me. Lily clung to my leg. Ryan stayed at the door, observing, with tears in his eyes. "Grandma!" shouted Mason. "Dad said we are going to make pies." "That is right, my love, and you are going to be my main helper." We spent the afternoon between laughter, dough, and stories. Ryan stayed but kept to the sidelines, letting me enjoy my grandkids, respecting my space, learning. When they left, with bags full of pies, Lily hugged me tight. "I love you, Grandma. Don't go away again." "I am not going, my darling. Now I am staying. But on my own terms." That night, alone in my house, I opened a new notebook. On the first page I wrote, Margaret Reynolds. Project, Margaret's Homemade Baking. Partner, 50%. Initial investment, $4,000. Then, on the next page, I wrote something more important. At my 67 years, I learned that true love is not sacrificing yourself until you disappear. It is loving from integrity. It is giving without losing yourself. It is forgiving without forgetting. It is being a grandmother without being a doormat. It is being a mother without being a martyr. I learned that it is never too late to recover your life, to say enough, to defend yourself, to shine. And I learned that sometimes the whisper of a stranger in a supermarket can save your whole life. I closed the notebook and put it in my nightstand. The next day, a new chapter would begin, one where I was the protagonist of my own story. Because true wealth was never in the money I gave, nor in the sacrifices I made. It was always in the courage to refuse to be less than I deserve, and that no one could ever take away from me. If this story touched something inside your heart, if it made you reflect on your own boundaries, on your own value, leave me your comment. Tell me, where are you watching us from? What part of this story resonated most with you? Like if you believe someone else needs to hear this. And subscribe to keep accompanying me in these stories of life that hurt, that teach, but above all, that heal. Because in the end, we all deserve to be protagonists of our own lives. It is never too late to start over. It is never too late to recover your dignity. See you in the next story. And remember, the respect you give yourself sets the standard for the respect you receive from the world.